Hello my dear grade 8 students. So today we are going to discuss about the fifth lesson of your science syllabus. Now the fifth lesson reflects about the sound. So before we are enter into our lesson, let me explain something about sound. I think all of you have heard about different sounds now. So what kind of a thing is this sound is? Sound is basically an energy, a type of energy. It's a form of energy that we come across in day-to-day life. So the things which can produce sound is called as sources of sound. If you take me, I am also a source of sound because I can emit sound. So sound is basically a type of energy that we come across in our day-to-day life. So if you take sound, if I'm going to further clarify what kind of a thing is sound, so I can clarify like this. Sound is a type of energy. So what is an energy? Energy means it doesn't have any volume, or else it doesn't take any space, and it doesn't have any kind of a mass. So the things that do not have a volume, or else it do not occupy any kind of a space. Now if you take me, I'm standing in here, so I'm occupying a certain space from this environment. So sound is not like a thing which occupies space. That's why it is referred as an energy. And also sound doesn't have any kind of a mass. Sound doesn't have any kind of a mass. When I'm speaking and you can listen the voice of me, even though you are listening, you can't see any weight which is getting increased, right? Your weight will be, or your mass will be the same. Your mass will be the same. You can listen any kind of sounds, but still there is no mass which is getting changed here. So therefore, sounds do not have any kind of a mass either. So sound is a type of energy, and sound also do not have a mass, and it doesn't occupy any kind of a space. So we are going to explain about the sources of sound now. So let me explain what are the sources of sound. Sources of sounds are the things that we come across in our day-to-day life which can emit different types of sound. Basically, we can divide these sounds into three main categories. So within this lesson, we are going to discuss about those three types of sound emitting instruments or things. Okay, so let me move on to the next slide to check what are the things or what are the ways of generating sound. So number one is given in here, the sources of sound, or the sources that produce sound by vibrating membranes. So let me explain the term vibrating or vibrations. So what do you mean by vibration? Actually, a vibration means very speed movements in particles. What are particles? In simple, we can divide particles into three main categories as liquids, solids, and gases. So very speed movements of any kind of a liquid, any kind of a gas, or any kind of a solid is referred as a vibration. So when a liquid or else a gas or else a solid vibrating much heavily, a sound is getting created. Okay, so vibrations are the speed movements which occur in particles or matter. So the first method of generating sound is the sound which is produced by vibration of the membranes. Okay, we can vibrate a membrane by tapping or giving some kind of a force by using a stick. We can vibrate a certain membrane and we can generate a sound. To explain this simple activity, you can just take a desk and you can tap it. So when tapping, you can hear that the sound is getting generated. How come the sound is getting generated when you are tapping to a desk? Because when you are tapping, the desk is going to vibrate. That's why the sound is getting emitted. So the second one is the sources of sound that produce the sources or the sources that produce sound by vibrating air columns. That's the second one. Sources that produce sound by vibrating air columns. I think all of you have been whistled, right? You know how to whistle. How come the sound is getting generated when you are whistling? It's because that when you are whistling, to your mouth, you are entering some amount of air particles. And when you are blowing it to outside, that air particles are getting vibrated inside your mouth. So due to that vibration, a smooth sound is getting generated. So if you take a flute, so flute is also a type of instrument which generates sound by the vibration of air columns. Then we are coming into the third one, the final one. The final one is the sources that produce sound by vibrating strings or a piece of metal. So all of you have heard about the guitar, right? I think some of you have played it also. So guitar, here you are vibrating a string to generate sound. And I think all of you have heard about, or all of you have seen the instrument called the xylophone. We use those things at our schools as well, right? When we are doing some kind of a musical event, so we use the xylophone as well. In a xylophone, there are metal plates, and metal plate is going to vibrate to produce sound. So my dear children, so these are the three main categories or three main ways of generating sound. Sound is generated due to vibration of membranes, the first one. Sound is generated due to vibration of air columns, and also the sound is generated due to vibration of a string or else a piece of metal. So these are the three main categories of instruments or things which generate sounds. Okay, right. Now let's move on to discuss in detail what are these things. So here, first we are discussing about sources of sound. In this lesson, the first and foremost thing is to discuss what are the things which generate sound. So sources of sound are the things which can generate sound energy. Sources of sound are the things which generate sound energy. So if you go to your environment and if you listen carefully, you can hear different kinds of sounds. For an example, sounds of birds, sounds of different animals like dogs, cats, and even sound of your humans as well, right? So these sources of sounds are also generating sounds according to above three methods. Okay, we'll discuss those things in the later part of this lesson. But so here we are discussing about the sources of sound. So sources of sound is the things which generate sound. Sources of sound are the things which generate sound. So I told you in the earlier lesson part, when we are discussing about the things which generate sound, sounds are generated due to vibrations. So here sound is generated due to vibrations of matter. So what are these vibrations? Once again, the vibrations are the things not the things, vibrations are the speed movement of materials. So materials are liquid, solids, or any kind of a gas. Very speed movements of solid or a liquid or a gaseous material is referred as a vibration. So the next one, we'll move on to the next point. So here you can identify the definition of what you mean by a vibration. So vibrations are the very speed movements of matter, right? So very speed movements of matter are called as vibrations. So things which produce sound is called as the sources of sound. Things which produce sound is called as the sources of sound. So here you are given with some examples: a piano, a frog, and a guitar. All of these things can produce sound. So not these type of things, these are just simple examples which you can get sound in your day-to-day activities, right? Here let me check about this special one, a frog. Now when you compare the sound of frog with these two, right, the guitar and the piano, frog is an animal who is living in our environment. So sources of sound can be divided mainly into two main categories. So sources of sound can be divided into two main categories. Earlier we divided sources of sound according to way of generating sound. Here mainly we can divide the things in divide the sources of sounds again into two main categories. So I'll take you to the next slide to see what are the things contained in the categories of sound. So here the main three forms of sound, or the main three forms of things which produce sound, we have divided those things into sources of sound sources which produce sound by vibration of a membrane. Here you can see different types of drums. So here this thing we called as the double drum, and there are several drums in here under this category. These drums are actually traditional. These drums are traditional, means though these things are mainly used in traditional festivals. So when you are visiting to a traditional festival, you can observe these drums. Okay, for an example, if you go to a Urdu festival, then definitely you can hear the sound of rabana or else the large drum. Okay, so these are the things which produce sound by the vibration of membranes. Especially those things are referred as drums. Then the second column, you can observe the second column. All of these things are now what? These things are, yes, these things are here. By the vibration of air columns, these things are going to produce sounds. There is a saxophone here. This is called as the saxophone. You know this thing, right? It's the flute. This is the flute. And this is the trumpet. Like that way, there are several things. I think you know about these things as well, right? So saxophone, flute, trumpet, and this thing is called as the horanava. We use this thing in mostly in Sri Lanka at funerals, or else in a situation where a pirit chanting is going on, right? In that kind of situation, we use this horanava thing. It's also a traditional musical instrument that produces sound through the vibration of air columns. And we come to the third one here, this thing. Here, there are some strings, and when you are giving us force, the strings are getting vibrated to produce sound. Here you can observe a guitar, a triangle, a cello, right? Those are the things which can produce sound through the vibration of a string or else a piece of metal. Right. So these are the main three sources of sound which we divided according to the way of generating sound. So sound is generated according to three ways: by the vibration of membranes, by the vibration of air columns, and by the vibration of strings or metal bars. Okay, right. Now let's move on to the next thing or the next slide to see what are the things in the other way of division in sources of sound. Okay, so let me remind you the previous slide where we took out a frog and a piano. So frog is a natural thing. Naturally, frogs are occurring in our environment. So therefore, frog is a natural living thing in our environment. But if you take a piano, piano is producing sound by the vibration of strings. We know that. But still, pianos are not occurring in our environment. Those things are not naturally occurring in our environment. Human is going to make this piano. So we refer these things which are made by humans, as artificial things. Artificial things. So according to the origin, okay, according to the origin, we can divide sources of sound into again two main parts. First thing is artificial sounds, the sounds emitted by man-made things or artificial things. What are the examples for artificial sounds? If you take musical instruments are man-made things. So any sound emitted by a musical instrument can be taken as an artificial sound. Okay, can be taken as an artificial sound. So here you are given with some other examples as well. We'll see. Here you can observe a mechanic is doing his work, right? So in that situation, you can identify the mechanic is going to use some kind of a machine. It can be a welding machine, or else a drilling machine, or else a grinder. So like that way. So when he is using the machine, right, you can observe that when he is using the machine, you can observe that some kind of a sound is going to emit. Some kind of sound is going to emit. So machines are going to emit sound. Therefore, sound of machines can be taken as an artificial source of sound because machines are made by humans. Okay. Then the next one, here you can observe another machine, but these things are called as vehicles, right? Here you can see vehicles, large number of vehicles. So this kind of situation where large number of vehicles are trapped within the limited space of the road is called as a traffic situation. So during a traffic, you can hear the sound of horns and the sound of buses and all the other vehicles. So the traffic sound is also created by the things which created by the man, or else it is also a artificial form of sound. So sound of traffic. sound of traffic or vehicles. Sound of traffic or sound of vehicles is also a type of artificial sounds, because those are emitting sound, those things are emitting sound by man-made things. Okay, right. So what are the other forms of sound which are artificial? Other forms of sounds which are artificial. Other than these things, if you now you are listening to me using the speakers, so sound emitted by the speaker, television, radio, all of these things can be categorized as artificial sounds. Even in a telephone, a mobile phone, any kind of an instrument which produce sound can be taken as an artificial sounds, because instruments are mainly prepared by human. That's why those things are referred as artificial sounds, because these things are produced by humans, they are not naturally occurring in our environment. Okay, now let's go to the next one. What is that? Natural sounds. Natural sounds. So these are the sounds which emitted by natural things. These are the sounds that emitted by natural things, or things that occur in our environment naturally. So here you are given with another two examples, just two examples, right? Here you can see the sound of birds. When you go to your environment, when you go to your external environment, you can hear different sounds of birds. Sound of a crow, sound of a magpie, sound of a cuckoo, like that way you can hear different types of birds who are shouting in the environment. So all of these birds are also naturally occurring. So therefore, all of the sounds which emitted by birds belongs to natural sounds. And not even the birds. If you take any kind of an animal, here you can see a small cat who is like shouting. We say that as a meow, right? So meow sound of the cat is also a type of sound which belongs to natural category. Okay, so what are the other forms of sound which emit by natural things? What about the sound of humans? If you take sound of human, does it belong to artificial or a natural thing? Humans are also occurring in our environment naturally, right? Our mother nature, right, is the one, or our mother nature created the human. So we take human sound also as a type of natural sound. Okay, sound of human also belong to a natural sound. Even though we made things, right, even though we made things that can emit sound belongs to the artificial category, humans means us, we belong to the, right, natural sounds. Our sounds belong to the natural sounds. Okay, right. So we'll write down two examples given in here. One thing is sound of cat, then sound of birds. So all of these two types are animals, no? Right? Is there any other source of sound which occur naturally other than animal sounds? So in a rainy day, you can hear the sound of rain. So sound of rain is also a natural thing. Rain is occurring naturally, no? So sound of rain, and during the rain, if it is a heavy rain, then you can hear the sound of thundering as well, right? After the lightning, you can hear the thundering sound as well. So sound of thundering is also a type of natural sound. Sound of thundering. Like that way, there are different types of sounds which emit artificially or by man-made things, and sounds which are emitted by natural things. Natural things. Right. So these are the other two categories of sound that we can observe in our environment. Okay then. So you are given a simple assignment. The assignment is list out separately some natural produced sounds and artificially produced sounds in the environment. Identify and name the part that vibrates when those sounds are produced. So you have to list out things which generate sound artificially and as well as naturally. Okay? Or else natural sources of sound and artificial sources of sound. So you have to divide natural and artificial sources of sound. Okay? And you have to identify the part which vibrates as well. So I'll give you like 3 examples for this. Right? I'll give 3 examples. So we'll see. So I'll divide into 3 main parts. First, so here natural sounds. Natural sound source. So I'll take the voice of a certain animal. If you take animals, human also belong to a type of animal. Okay? Human is also a type of animal living in the environment. Right? Okay. So sound of animals. I'll take sound of a cat. And in the other column, I'm going to explain how the sound is going to emit from a cat. So where sound is generated. Right. So the sound of cat, when the cat is meowing, okay, when the cat is going to meow, there are things which called as the vocal cords, a small type of a muscle or else a tissue which located at the either sides of the cat. So there is a thing called vocal cords. It is a tissue or as a simple muscle. So when cat is meowing, that muscle is going to vibrate. Okay? That vocal cords are vibrating to produce sound. So way or the how sound is produced, we can name as by vibrating vocal cords. By vibrating a vocal cord. Vocal cord is a thing which contained within animals to produce or to generate sound. When some animal is going to make the sound, the vocal cords is going to vibrate. You can keep your arm like this to your either sides of the throat, and when you are speaking, you can see that your fingers are going to vibrate. You can feel that vibration. So it's because that your vocal cords are vibrating in here to generate sound. So most of the animals, when they are making sounds, the vocal cords are going to vibrate. But there are some other animals as well which can generate sounds different than this thing. Okay? So this is the first one. Now I'm going to write down how the way of thundering is going to, or the way of sound is generated in thundering. So thundering is occurring after the lightning, no? So large amount of energy is coming towards the earth. So in this situation, the air particles in our atmosphere is going to vibrate. Air particles in our atmosphere is going to vibrate. The thing is that this vibration is much heavy. That's why we can hear a very large sound. So the next one is sound of thundering. So thundering sound is going to emit due to vibration of air particles in our atmosphere. By vibration of by vibrating air particles in atmosphere. Okay. Then how does the sound is generated when raining? When raining, you can hear the sound is getting generated. When raining, the raindrops come and hits the earth. So in that situation, the water particles are going to vibrate. So by the vibration of water particles, we can hear the sound of rain. Okay? By the vibration of water particles, we can hear the sound of rain. So, sound of rain. Sound of rain is occurring due to the vibration of water particles. By vibrating water particles. So these are some examples for the things which occur, natural sounds, and what part of it vibrates during the emission of sound. So if you take most of the animals like cats, dogs, right, like cats and dogs, even in humans, the sound is emitted by the vibration of vocal cords. Vocal cords are the smaller type of muscle which located inside the mouth, inside the throat of the animal, that can produce sound by the vibration. Okay, it's a small kind of a muscle. Then the next one I have given the sound of thundering. So the sound of thundering is occurring due to vibration of air particles in our atmosphere. Due to vibration of air particles in our atmosphere, it's emitting heavy sound because air particles are vibrating at a much more speed. That's why it's emitting a huge sound during the thundering. So the next one is the sound of rain. So sound of rain is occurring due to the vibration of water particles when they are going to hit the ground. Okay, when it is going to hit the ground, water particles are going to vibrate to emit sound in rain. So these are the ways which sound is produced in natural sources. This is how the sound is generated in natural sources. Right. Now let's move on with the next thing which I am going to explain. I told you that earlier there are some certain special cases of animals. There are some special cases of animals. There are some types of animals which can emit sound without these vocal cords. Without these vocal cords, there are some types of animals who can emit sound. Okay? So, see these things. The humming sound of the bees, like when a bee is going to fly or else a mosquito is going to fly, you have heard a small humming sound, right? So the humming sound of the bees come from the motions or else from the vibrations of their wings. Now, if you take a mosquito or else a bee or else the mosquito is vibrating their wings very fast. These vibrations are very fast. We can't observe those things from our naked eye. They are that much speed. So, due to vibration of these wings, a small sound is getting produced in bees and as well as in mosquitoes. So, the humming sound of the bees and mosquitoes are emitting due to vibration of their wings. Then the next one, the grasshoppers and cicada generate their characteristic sound by rubbing the bristles on their legs. Now, grasshoppers and cicada, when evening comes, right, when evening is going to fall in a day, you can hear the sound of cicadas. It's a very disturbing sound. So, cicada is going to produce the sound by rubbing their bristles together. During this rubbing process, the bristles are going to vibrate to produce sound. in production of sound in cicadas, and also grasshopper do the same thing to produce sound. So they are not using vocal cords. They are rubbing a special part, or they are vibrating a special part inside the body to produce sound. Cicada and the grasshopper then produce sound by rubbing their bristles on their legs. Then there is another one, frogs. So how does frogs generate sound? So the frogs generate their sound by vibrating air column using their throat. Using their throat, right? They are trapping a certain amount of air within their throat, and they vibrate in that air column to produce sound. Okay? I think in your environment or in televisions, I think you have observed there are some frogs who has a wider inflated throat. It's because that those frogs are trapping some amount of air particles within their throat, and they are vibrating that air particles to produce sound. They are vibrating the air particles to produce sound. Okay? So we'll move on to the next slide to see these animals. So here you can observe a type of a frog. This frog is called the hyla frog. Hyla frog. So here you can observe that air column. See this air column inside the throat of the frog. You can see it. So by the vibration of that air column, this hyla frog is going to produce sound, that unique sound of the frog. Okay? It's a special one, a special case. Then you can observe the bees. Here in the figure as well, you can observe their wings. It's because that they are vibrating wings very fast, right? In this figure also you can't observe their wings, right? So that's why the humming sound is getting emitted from the bees due to generation of sound by the vibration of their wings, right? Then the next one, the next animal, cicada. So cicada is going to rub their bristles and to produce sound. And the grasshopper also do the same thing in production of sound. So these animals are somewhat special. These animals are somewhat special. I told you that animals usually generate sound by the vibration of vocal cords, a small bit of a tissue which is located on their throat. But these animals, they emit sound by the vibration of a special body part, right? So these are the natural sources of sound, which you could observe. So I'm not going to give you some artificial sources of sound. It's because that you can hear or you can get some idea about the artificial sources of sound, right? But we'll do just one example to see what are the things in artificial sources of sound. I'll do one example. So if you take sound of machine, sound of machine is getting generated due to vibration of a certain metal or else a certain instrument, right? If you take a grinder, now the grinder is rotating. When the grinder is going to rotate, the metal parts inside the grinder is going to vibrate. So it's going to emit sound by the vibration of metal part. Okay, right. So sound of machine is generated by vibrating a metallic part, a metal part. So what are the examples? Grinder, grinder, a drill, a drilling machine, so these things vibrate a metallic part to generate sound. These things vibrate a metallic part to generate sound. Okay, so in the same way, you can list out the things which generate sound artificially. Okay, right, which generate sound artificially, and you can write down the way or write down the part which vibrates during their emission of sound. Right, so these are the ways of generating sounds in artificial things and in natural things. So I hope that you took a great idea about the sources of sound. Okay, now we are moving on to the next part of the lesson. Right, so the next part is frequency of a vibration. Frequency of a vibration. Frequency of a vibration. To identify the frequency of vibrations, we'll do a small bit of an activity. So you need to find out a piano or else a guitar or else any other musical instrument. A guitar, piano or else any other kind of a musical instrument would be needed for this activity. So it's really simple. Play some keys in the musical instrument that you have and listen to the music well and determine the differences. Okay, so here I have given you two musical instruments, right? So this thing, you know, this is the organ, right? And this is the one which we discussed earlier, that has metal plates, and you need to tap on the metal plate to generate sound. So this instrument is called as the xylophone. Xylophone. Right. You can use any of the musical instrument. Can be a piano, guitar, an organ, or else a xylophone, any kind of a thing. Okay. Then what you have to do is, if it is an organ, then you have to play each of the keys given in here and to observe the sound which is generated. Especially, you have to identify the differences. Of the sound which is getting generated by the different types of keys. What kind of a sound is going to emit by the left hand side keys and the right hand side keys? When you're moving from left to right in an organ, is there any difference in the sound which is getting emitted? You have to identify that thing clearly. That is our aim of the experiment. That's the aim of our experiment. Okay? Right, my dear children. Then we'll move on to the lab and let's conduct this activity to get the necessary observations. Right, my dear children. So I have an organ right now. So you can see this is an electric organ, right? Now I am going to show you that by playing each of these keys, I am going to show you that the sounds that we can heard from this instrument is going to vary when I am moving from my left hand keys to my right hand keys, right? So let's play and see what kind of a sound is going to emit when I am going to play each of these keys, right? So I'll start from the left hand side. So when I'm playing, you have to listen to the sound carefully. It's because that you have to get the differences between the sounds emitted when the keys are getting played. Okay, so listen to the sound carefully and identify the differences between the sounds. So I'll play once again. See my left hand keys, these keys. So those are the sounds emitted by my left hand keys, right? Those are the sounds emitted by the keys which are located on the left hand. So you can hear the sounds clearly. I'll once again I'll play these things. Okay. Listen to the sound carefully, right? Now I'm going to move to my right hand side, somewhat to the middle of the organ, to see the keys, like what kind of a sound are they going to emit. So we'll see. Can you see that? There is some kind of a difference in the sound. Once again I'll play the both like in a same kind of an interval. See? So there is a clear difference between the keys. Now if I'm going to move to my far right corner, right, like in these keys, so you can hear a very different sound rather than the keys on my left. So see these things. See. You can clear that when I'm going to press the right hand keys like this, and when I'm going to press the left hand keys like this, the more intensity of a sound can be heard when playing these right hand keys. More intensity of a sound can be heard when I'm pressing these right hand keys like this. So intensity of the sound is low when I'm pressing left hand keys like this. So a ringing sound is given when I'm pressing these right hand keys, but the ringing sound is not getting emitted when I'm pressing left hand keys. So it is clear to us that in the same instrument there can be different types of sounds. It's because that their vibrational frequency, when I'm pressing each of these keys, their vibrational frequency differ from key to key. That's why they are emitting different types of sounds. So as per to the activity, we can say that in the keys of the organ, there are different types of frequencies according to the keys. Right, my dear children. So we conducted the activity and we took an organ and we played the keys. So you know that when you take an organ, there are different keys in the organ. And also you know that when you take a certain type of a music, it contains 7 musical notes. So the organ is generating these 7 musical notes by changing the frequency, by changing the number of vibrations when I'm going to press the key, the organ is going to change the number of vibrations of a certain key. So by that way, it's going to generate different types of sounds. So in here, you can see that it is observed that when playing the instrument, different sounds could be heard. So when I was playing that organ, you could hear different types of sounds with different intensities, right? So if you check the next point, if you listen carefully, now I told you to listen the sound very carefully, so you have listened it, and we could observe that the right hand side, when you move from left hand side to right hand side, the right hand side case contain a more intense sound. When I was pressing right hand side keys, the organ is producing more intense sound. When I'm pressing left hand side keys, the organ is producing less intense sound, right? More intense sound could be heard when I'm pressing the right hand side, and when I'm pressing the left hand side keys, I could hear less intense sound. So the reason for this thing is, see, let's check. So the 7 notes of the instrument have different sounds. So you know that 7 instruments in the organ, it contains different types of sounds, mainly because of change in the number of vibrations in each key. So I told you earlier, in each key, they have a certain number of vibrations, and when increasing or decreasing the number of vibrations within a key, we can change the sound or the intensity of the sound. So in here, our observation, we could rewrite. I'll take the slide somewhat up. So our observation was, from the activity, our observation was different sounds are emitted by different keys in the organ. So we can write the observation like this: different sounds are emitted by different keys of the organ. So different sounds are emitted by different keys of the organ. So this is the observation that we took from the earlier activity. So what's the conclusion of our activity then? Why does these different sounds are getting emitted? So the conclusion is because the number of vibrations given by a certain key is going to differ from one key to another. The number of vibrations is going to differ from one key to another. That's why we can hear different types of sounds or different kinds of sounds with different intensities. So we can write different vibrations, So here I'll use different number of vibrations. different number of vibrations occur in different keys of the instrument. So instrument means here we use the organ, no? So I'll include organ. Right. So this is our final conclusion from the activity. Right, my dear children, then let's move on to the next slide to observe what are the other contents. So, changing of sound is caused due to quantity called the frequency. Frequency. So, frequency is the quantity which change the emission, which change the form of sound, or which changes the, or which deviates. It helps to deviate the sound. What the factor? The frequency. So frequency is the factor which helps to deviate sound from the left keys, from your right keys in the musical instrument which we have taken. So what is this frequency? We'll see what is this frequency means then. When changing the frequency, sounds is also changes. When changing the frequency, the sound is also going to change. That's a thing which we studied earlier. So here, now let's see what is the thing which is called as the frequency. So frequency is the factor that measures the number of oscillations. Here oscillations means the number of vibrations. Frequency is the factor which measures the number of oscillations or vibrations per unit time. Now per unit time means within 1 second of a time. Within 1 second of a time. So you have to take 1 second. Within 1 second, how many number of vibrations are going to occur in the material? So that's the meaning of the quantity called frequency. So when the number of vibrations or the speed of a vibration is going to change, right? What happens? What happens? When changing the frequency or the number of vibrations, you can observe that the sound is also going to change. So in any kind of a musical instrument, sound is getting changed from note to note by changing the vibrational frequency or the number of oscillations or the number of vibrations that occur within a unit time period. Right. So now these figures, I think you have seen these figures, these instruments. These instruments are called as tuning forks. Tuning forks. These things are called as tuning forks. We use tuning forks to observe the vibrational patterns, right? So each and every tuning fork has a certain frequency of vibration. Okay, so each and every tuning fork has a certain frequency of vibration. It has two arms like this, so you have to tap it. So when tapping it, the two arms vibrates. the vibrating frequency is mentioned in here. Here 488. You ignore this hertz part, H and Z part, you ignore this. We'll come on to that part in the next slide. For just now, just concentrate about the number given here. So here 488, here 433, here 512, and here 350. These are the number of oscillations or else vibrations that occur within 1 second of a time period when this tuning fork is going to vibrate. When each of these tuning forks are going to vibrate, now if you take the A tuning fork, when you tap, it vibrates 488 times within 1 second. And the next one, B, when you tap on B, it vibrates 433 times per 1 second. And in C, it vibrates 512 times within 1 second. 512 vibrations within 1 second. So it's a huge amount. And in D, it vibrates 350 times within 1 second. Okay. So to observe a vibration, you are given with a figure like this. So vibration means it moves here and there and come to original position once again. Okay, that's considered as a one vibration. Once again, this is the normal tuning fork. So when tuning fork is going to vibrate, it moves here and once again it moves back and again it comes to original position once again. Again it comes back to original position once again. It's like a cycle. Go there, go back and come to the original position. So it completes one cycle. That's why it is called as a oscillation. Oscillation means also a one cycle. Oscillations are also considered as a cycle. So it's actually completing one cycle. This one cycle is referred as a one vibration. This one cycle is referred as a one vibration. So when tuning fork of this thing is going to, when I'm going to vibrate it, it completes these oscillations. How many? 350. 350 oscillations are being completed. When I'm going to tap on this tuning fork, it completes 350 oscillations or else cycles within 1 second of a time period. So when change in that amount of oscillations or the vibrations, the sounds emitted by each and every instrument is going to change. Okay, right. So we'll move on to the next slide to observe or to calculate how to calculate the number of vibrations which occur in a material. So you are given with a formula to find out the frequency of a vibration. So frequency of a vibration is equal to number of vibrations which occur. If you take a certain material, the number of vibrations that occur and the total time taken to complete that amount of vibrations. Okay. So frequency of a vibration is equal to number of vibrations which occur division the time taken. But remember, when you are substituting the time taken, you should definitely use that thing by seconds. You should remember that thing. Always you use seconds for the time. Not minutes, not hours. Remember to put seconds. If you are given with minutes, then you need to convert those minutes into seconds, then substitute it with the formula to get the answer. So once again, frequency of a vibration is equal to number of vibrations which occur division the time taken. Okay, so I told you in the earlier slide, ignore about the thing which was named as HNZ. So now you can identify what is this thing called as the hertz. See, the international standard unit of measuring frequency, it is the international standard unit which used to measure the frequency. So the international standard unit of measuring frequency is hertz. Okay, so the international standard unit that used to measure frequency is hertz. Like we measure mass of a certain person by using kilograms. So kilograms is the international standard unit to measure mass. We measure length of a certain thing by using meters. So international standard unit in measuring length is meters. In the same way, frequency of a vibration, number of oscillations complete by a material. So the frequency of a vibration is measured by using the unit called hertz. Hertz is the standard international unit that used to measure the frequency. Right then. So you are given with a question to find out the frequency. You are given with a question to find out the frequency. So we'll find out the answer for the given question in here. So I'll take the slide somewhat upward so that you can see the question. So check. You are given with the question. If a certain tuning fork is making 180 vibrations within 1 minute, then so we have to calculate the vibration. So we'll calculate the vibration then. Within 1 minute, this is going to complete 180 vibrations. So frequency is equal to, what is the formula that we have? Frequency is equal to number of vibrations division the time taken. Number of vibrations division time taken. Right. Now we'll substitute the given things for the formula to find out the frequency. So the number of vibrations, tuning fork making 180 vibrations. 180 is the number of vibrations then. Within 1 minute. So, can you substitute 1 minute to here? No, you can't. Because I told you that the time should be given in seconds. So, 1 minute means within 1 minute there are 60 seconds. 60 seconds. So you substitute 60 seconds, my children, for the answer. to get the answer. Remember, always the time taken should be in seconds, not in minutes or in hours. You should have to remember that thing. So 180 division 60. So you can cut 0 to 0 in here. My answer would be then 18 division 6, which is equal to 3. What is our unit in measure in vibrations or frequency of a vibration? It is measured from, remember, hertz. Hertz, capital H, simple Z. So my answer is 3 hertz. My answer for the question is 3 hertz. 3 hertz is the answer for the question here. Right? 3 hertz. So what is the meaning of this 3 hertz? When this material is making 180 vibrations within 1 minute, for 1 second it vibrates 3 times. That's the meaning of the thing called frequency. For 1 second, how many oscillations does the material is going to complete? How many vibrations does the material is going to complete? Right? So in this question, this material that makes 180 vibrations within 1 minute is going to complete out 3 oscillations or 3 vibrations within 1 second of a time period. We'll do another question then. I'll give you the question. We'll do another one. Right? Okay. Right. So I'm going to give you a question then. A tuning fork completes a tuning fork completes 60 vibrations within 20 seconds. Within 20 seconds. Find the frequency. Right. Now, this is my question. A tuning fork is going to vibrate how many times? It's going to vibrate 60 times. Within how much of a time period? Within 20 seconds of a time period. So, we'll write down the formula to calculate the frequency. Frequency is equal to number of oscillations or number of vibrations division the time taken. So we'll substitute the values to the formula to get the answer. Number of vibrations. So I have underlined the number of vibrations in here. So it completes 60 vibrations. 60. Division. The time taken is equal to 20 seconds in here. So in this question, you are given with seconds. So seconds you can directly apply with the formula. If the question is given by minutes, then remember, definitely you have to convert that minute thing into seconds. Here it's no problem. You can substitute the 20 seconds in here. So here vibration 60. And 20 seconds is the time. Once again, you can cut 0 to 0 here. 6 division 2. We get the same answer, 3 hertz. We get the same answer as 3 hertz. Okay. So like that way, in different types of tuning forks, you can find out the frequency by applying the formula. Frequency is equal to number of vibrations division the time taken. Frequency is equal to number of vibrations division the time taken. So you take the number of oscillations or the vibrations given in the question and divide that value by the time taken. But remember, when taking the time, it should be definitely in seconds. So if you are given with any other units, remember to convert those units into seconds. Right. So that's how to find out the frequency. So once again, frequency is the number of oscillations which completes within unit time period or else within 1 second. To find out the frequency, we use the formula frequency equal number of oscillations division the time taken. Right. So my dear children, we discussed about the frequency then. Okay. So we'll discuss the further things related to the lesson in our next chapter.